Hello. So, this video is just going to be about what happened to the tactics tutorials. So, it got pretty far, and then I got some networking in there. But then I started trying to make my own releasable game, and that was called Tactics Forge, which was the fourth combat simulation I was trying to make. But anyway, that didn't fall through, and I just worked my day job more. But anyway, a little over 2 years ago, I started working on a fifth tactical combat game, and the only real code that I used from the old tutorials was the AI, which has been greatly modified. And I can get to explaining that. Well, basically, I was going to show kind of how the tools are set up in here. I don't know if I'll show really any code, but I made all these, helper tools for myself. The first technique was basically using scriptable objects as kind of our database. So if I look down here, I've got like scriptable objects holding a bunch of different audios or bundles of audio with a label, and I've just got a bunch of these and we use them throughout. Where it really helps is in the character and item management. So if I go to like item management, I go to like double arms slot, and then I can click on the item. So let's say bronze staff, and I've got this slew of properties I can modify. And they've got their own IDs, and I can, I have some editor code to duplicate them and whatnot. But pretty much everything in the game is through these scriptable objects. So like, if I go to skills, fighter, I can see I've got a 2-weapon fighting skill. I got a description here and some truncated names. We're actually using a very low resolution on purpose to make it look kind of, from the 90s. Like a mock Super Nintendo type of thing. And even to powers, so that'd be like water spells, and we got all these different spells, and they have their different stats, the points it costs to learn it, the points it takes up, the time units in game. So scriptable objects, very useful tool. We use it exclusively for that. Another neat tool was in level creation. So if I go to my scene here, I've got just basic. This never gets built. It's just a scene for creating the levels. And what I've got set up here is like at runtime, I create a mesh, and I give it a Z and an X amount of quads. So I'll just leave it as is here. So I've got like 13 by 18. If I went and built that, I would have this guy here. And I have a bunch of cubes that act as control points. So if I grabbed, say, this vertex, I could move it up and down, and it kind of does like a SimCity effect. If anyone remembers SimCity 2000, it was a big inspiration for how to do something like this. And the reason I did a mesh like this is because I didn't want cube tiles. I wanted to get the angles, and I wanted it to look like it fit with 3D models that were kind of placed in there. And in mind, I had very Final Fantasy Tactics kind of feel, which had a 3D look. I didn't know how it would really how it would end up. But anyway, that's why. So I think I'm going to load in another level. So one of the major things that was changed in the AI was, say I wanted to add another one of these polygons here. So if I added a 4 by 6, and now I've got 2 of these, and they would act on their own, but the logic, I'd want to be able to connect. So rather than having it like some kind of tool that would manually connect them, I generate a jump. So it's like if I take a tile and I take the stat of the character and determine how high they can jump in grid space, I calculate that. So I'm doing like physics checks, distance checks, some heavy stuff that would, it's not really that heavy, but it's heavy on if you're doing it for every single tile. So what I do is I calculate all of them and then I store them. Let's see if I go to a completed level here, into these text files, and it's hard to see from here, but it's basically just a list of jump neighbors at a given, and this is 20 to 10, these are the jump stats, and this is 20, 15, 40, 80. The 80 is a height jump, and then the 20 and 40 is a horizontal jump, which I later basically got rid of. That was because if you had a good enough stat, you would just jump everywhere, because you could jump farther than you could walk. But anyway, yeah, I'll pull up a finished level that uses all of these. Let's see, which one is this? Here, I'll throw that in. So you'll notice I have this prefab. Now, if you make enormous prefabs, you're going to run into some problems. So when I load these in, I'm not actually using these prefabs. They're not linked to anything. They don't use a bundle. And I just convert it to a scene. So if I disable that, I can look at this. Basically the same thing. You see my face tiles. Those are the visible tiles when things get highlighted. And in the editor, it's here, I have a little tool to get rid of that. Cool. So anyway, a finished one, looks like this is one or two of those polygons. So maybe I should pull out another one. Let's see. What was 10? No, that was 10. 11. Let's just skip to something bigger. Okay. So this is one that I originally made too small, so I had to make some additional polygons. So you can see down here in the game view, it's a graveyard. But if I click on each of these, I've got an elevated spot up here, which I used a separate tile for. So I call them isometric polygons, but it's just an arbitrary generic name. And to get things like the sides on there, I would use this side face creation tool that I made. So let's see if I go, and if I return the vertex helpers, well, you can see a little more how that kind of fits. But let's see, if I make, so this is 14, So if I just click on these, or fail to click on these, there, and then I do some things like I'm gonna add these different vertices together, and then create a side face. It should have generated a side face. Now, where does it? Oh, you can kind of see it pink in there. So now this is something, and it generated it in my library, so I don't really want to store that. But it looks like where I put the dots. So that's how I get around side walls, which is it. I could probably find a way to also automate that process, but I haven't. I mean, how many levels do you need? Right now we're at 39, but I mean, I didn't make them overnight. Anyway, let me delete this here, and just so I don't have extra stuff. But yeah, that's how I'm doing levels. Well, also for some of our AI, we wanted to use it on a different thread, so I made my own collider system, and that's basically what these gizmos are doing. They're a bunch of spheres, because I'm only doing a sphere collision, and that's for like arrows and projectiles that could hit something in the way. And there's also colliders that are using the same system on the characters while the game is playing. So levels. We're doing a 2D look, and that took a lot of shaded work. But I can show kind of how things look without the filtering. And it's not really, well, it is filtering. That's kind of what filters are, but it's not. I don't know. It's a post effect in some sense, but in other senses, it's got some colors that are very specific. So I'm just going to load up something here. I'll load up that graveyard. I had a graveyard up. So I am going to load up a roster for a battle map. And then a graveyard map. Okay. So, and this is my little dev panel. In the game, you would have to do it through other means, but in here, you can open up a roster. My volume's very forward. I'm gonna lower that. 1 sec. Okay. So anyway, this dev list of tools is it was mainly to create these rosters for the opponents or what have you. So if I go into it, I should have access to these. So this is kind of all of the RPG type stuff they got. It's got the equipment, it's got classes, skills, powers. So these are the things that were in the scriptable objects. They're just displayed here. Now let's load the graveyard. So you notice it's nighttime, so they have a darker palette. I'll show you that. Okay, so here I'll pull up some dudes. So now, this look that they have, hopefully that's coming through, is it's a little wider than a Super NES, so it's got more pixels, but it's kind of close to it. When you look at it over here, you can see our character models. And I can kind of explain what shader things we're doing. So let me just get to a guy. See, those are the colliders again. All right. So the world has a directional light. Where is that? There. We've got our light, and I'm using that to gather a direction, but I'm not actually using the lighting system. If I go back to this guy, you can see there's a light source coming in screen space. So every direction there's going to be light, and that's sort of like what sprites do. And it helped make some of a spritey-like look, even though it's very fluid, and that's not how sprites are, but hopefully it's unique enough. So if I get to another scene. Okay, so now what we're doing is we have our light, our medium, and our dark areas, and then we've got an in-between which does this little dither effect. So like crisscrossing this color with this color, creating this old school like effect. Now when I say we got a highlight, a medium, and a low, it is literally the same for every one of that color, because if I look at any of the materials, I have this custom little thing here where based off of the texture, which a lot of times is no texture because we're doing like one object per color, but sometimes we use a texture, and we just have a little drop down for colors. So like this is blue right now, but if I made it red, it would do that, and you can see it down there. Now those colors are also defined in our color manager. So all of these are the colors, and right now they're using a nighttime, but I'm just going to apply the color palette of there. So this is daytime. This is our default color palette, and again, to achieve that effect, we just have these scriptable objects with a bunch of defined. So if I go back here, drag in dark, you can see they all kind of shifted, and then if I apply that, we got that dark look. It's hard to see in a higher resolution, but these are still doing the dithering, and it kind of creates that other in-between color. Anyway, yeah, originally I just used a rig, and I was using 2D sprites and just hooking it up to the bones, but ultimately we couldn't get every angle perfect, and we wound up making like 8 or 16 images for one image of like a joint. So it's like just some guy's hand would have 16 images. So to speed that up, we started modeling things to make all of those images, and I thought that was so ridiculously tedious that I should start researching that 2D stuff. Oh yeah, I can't forget about this. So in the game we have our chapter. So we got our map. This is it's a homemade map. And we've got a few tools. So look at this key here. These are a bunch of map points, the map points of the game. If I run it, I should be able to get it to pop in all of the map points that we've got in the chapter. So if I click a couple things here. Okay. Oop. We're using for the lines, we're using Bezier. Get a little bit of a curve to it. And this tool here, it's basically a store of IDs, because certain things have these IDs. Like these paths are scriptable objects, and so are the dots. And the dots, if I go to like one of these, and then it pulls up the information about it, and it gets a cutscene, which is what I'm calling battles, or literally cutscenes, to load that up. Oh, that reminds me, I didn't even look into the cutscenes. So cutscene hierarchy is where I kind of finalize everything. So if I do this one, we have scriptable objects for many different actions that can happen in a cutscene. So I'm going to quick load this up. So this is level 24. It's indoor castle, that's what we're calling it. So we've got an indoor scene. In the indoor scene, we had to do some extra things like on these to have them disappear based off of the camera angle. You can see how weird that kind of looks. But also, the cutscene itself uses these tiles as reference. So the red in this case is where enemies spawn. The blue is where the player can spawn, because they have a deployment zone. This is kind of it. And here, I'll pull up these cutscene modules. So if I get over here, I guess you can't see it too well, but action number, and it just goes in order. Some of them some of them like call other modules. This is the main module. We got these sub modules, and I could make them run at parallel. So say I had a guy moving from there to there, and I wanted him to keep doing it, I could put it on a parallel submodule, and it would do a move to action. That's how we're doing cutscenes. I made the cutscenes before I even made the combat, so it all links really kind of slick. So it's like, I got my stop music. If I go down here, I literally speed up the game with a turbo, because I'm moving things around. And then by the time I set the turbo back, it would hopefully be a minimal amount of time. And then by the time I actually get to actions that the player would see, it's around here. So this is moving the camera. We've got some dialogue, some hand gestures. We have the fly-in overlay. And then we start a battle module. And there's triggers here for battle modules. Basically, this one, actor dies. Or this one, player party dies. So the player party dies, I load up another module, which is, I think, this one. I run a defeat script, I do a little text, no, and then it goes back to the title screen. So, I might as well show this this scene to kind of show it. And I'll let that load up. This should be that same one. I think I'm going to switch to the controller. Okay. So I see it, move camera, and then we've got our text. Do a little thing there. And then it's going to hit the battle module after this little transition thing. And we're in a combat. So it reached the battle module, and things like move to are now linked to the player's input and the stats of their current character. But it's all a bunch of cutscene commands. Like if I do a spell on this guy, and I'll just quick their turns. But yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff we've put into this combat system. So, and the AI, they got those little dots. Oh, there we go. There's a cone attack. Those guys are doing area effects. Except there we got a cast on. Some of the other options are, you know, like an arc or full spiral. These allow you to hit at a diagonal, so that's kind of nice. We've got spears, the 2 reach. We got our rock, all in scriptable objects. We're using a lot of visual stuff, like we got particles going on over there. We're using Unity cloth physics. Anyway, yeah, no, around 2 years this month on developments on this guy. We plan to release it next year. It's called Tactics 5. We haven't fully decided the subtext on it. Right now it's Obsidian Brigade. That makes sense in the story. Can't say really what platforms it'll be on, but yeah, if you have questions about how this has been progressing, or if you want any info about how to do certain things that maybe we do in here and that would work for tactics games, I could probably have some explanation somewhere. I'm not going to make this open source or anything. It's just it's not free for people. So anyway, this is how we're doing the Unity side of this game, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.